Welcome to the deep dive. We got this really interesting PDF all about the Aquila Fund FCR boards. It's a Portuguese investment fund, and honestly, it looks way more exciting than just your average investment.
Yeah, it really does. I think what's really cool is how they're mixing access to Portugal's Golden Visa program with like a portfolio that aims to support these really innovative companies, like shaping the future kind of companies. It's a pretty awesome combination if you're the right investor.
I agree. So to give everyone a clear picture, this Aquila Fund FCR is kind of like an investment platform. It houses four different independent funds. We'll be focusing mostly on the Boards Fund, which along with their Wheels and Hotel Invest funds are the ones that could get you a golden visa.
And that's where you see they have a really smart diversification strategy going on. You can have a portfolio that has like collectible cars, real estate, even hotel management, and also it holds equity stakes in companies that are working on like climate change or revolutionizing healthcare or even, pushing the boundaries of technology. So it's kind of about aligning your financial goals with your personal interests and maybe a total new lifestyle.
Okay, so let's talk about that golden visa program for a second. It seems like a big thing for a lot of people, but what are the main points our listeners should know about?
So Portugal's Golden Visa program is really popular, even compared to similar programs in other EU countries. Basically, what it does is it gives residency rights to people and their families if they make certain investments. That means you're not just thinking about money, but also, how this could change your life, maybe get you access to the Schengen area, and even possibly a path to citizenship.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. It almost sounds too good to be true. Are there any downsides or trade-offs someone should consider before jumping in? What about taxes if you become a resident?
It's always good to look at the whole picture, right? The tax stuff can be complicated, and you would want to talk to an expert about that, someone who knows about international residency. And even though the benefits are great, you have to think about how it fits with your life now, your family, and your goals for the future.
That's a really good point. So let's focus on Aquila Boards specifically. The document says it's a fund of funds, which is a little confusing at first. Can you explain that?
Sure. Think of it this way. Instead of investing directly in companies, Aquila Boards invests in other funds that then choose and manage a bunch of promising companies. In this case, they're looking for companies that are like leading the way in innovation, particularly in clean technology, biotechnology, and healthcare. It's a way to spread your investment across a bunch of experts while getting into sectors that are about to grow a lot.
Well, that makes sense. So it's like they're putting together a team of scouts to find the best players out there. But what's interesting about their strategy to you, it doesn't sound like they're just passively investing in these other funds.
You're right. It's really interesting that they have this two-pronged approach. So 60% of the fund goes directly to those investments we just talked about, like picking new and exciting companies in those key areas. But the other 40% is allocated to something called the secondary market. And they do this through a partnership with Aquila Capital Fund.
The secondary market, that's not something you hear every day. Can you explain what that is in terms of private equity?
It's actually a pretty cool area. So imagine a market where instead of buying stocks in public companies, you're buying and selling ownership in existing private equity funds or even groups of privately held companies. It's kind of like getting access to a collection of investments that already have a history, which lets you assess risk differently and maybe get your money out faster.
So they're kind of combining the excitement of investing in new companies with the stability of those that are already established. Sounds like a smart way to deal with how unpredictable private equity can be. But before we move on, I think we need to explain this secondary market thing a bit more. It's probably new for some of our listeners, and even I'm not totally clear on it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth talking about more. What makes the secondary market so interesting is that you can get into mature investments, but also there are different kinds of deals.
Right.
You have LP-led deals, GP-led restructuring, and even direct company co-investments. They each have their own advantages and dynamics.
Whoa, hold on. Let's take those one at a time so our listener can follow. What exactly is an LP-led transaction in the secondary market?
Okay, so imagine you're like a big institution or a really wealthy person, and you invested in a private equity fund a while back. Then, for whatever reason, you need some cash, or you change your investment strategy, so you decide to sell your part of the fund. That's an LP-led transaction.
Yeah.
Aquila Boards, through their partnership with Aquila Capital, could buy that stake from you. It's kind of like joining a game that's already started.
So they're not just picking winners for the future, they're also seeing the value in companies that are already doing well. What about those GP-led transactions you mentioned? How do they work?
Okay, so this is where the fund manager comes in, the general partner. Sometimes they might want to restructure the fund, maybe to give money back to investors or to make the fund last longer. In these cases, Aquila Boards could buy some of the fund's assets or even buy into a new fund that's managed by that same GP. It's a bit more complicated, but it can be a really good strategy.
So it's like a behind-the-scenes move to make the fund work better.
Got it. Now, what about direct deals or co-investments? Are those as easy as they sound?
They can be. Imagine there's a company that's already in a private equity fund's portfolio, and Aquila Boards thinks it's doing really well. In a direct deal, they could buy a part of that specific company without having to invest in the whole fund. It's a more focused way to invest, letting them go after the best opportunities.
Oh, I see. So it's like saying, we like what this fund is doing overall, but we really like this one company in particular. That's a pretty smart approach. Exactly. It shows how flexible they are and how they're willing to grab opportunities at different stages of a company's growth.
Yeah,
And remember, all of this is happening within those three big impact sectors.
Hmm.
We talked about clean technology, biotechnology, and healthcare.
right. So it's not just about finding any good company, it's about finding companies that are going to be big in the future and that can really change things as we know it.
It's impact investing mixed with really smart portfolio building. That's why it's so cool. But we've been talking a lot about strategy and market stuff. Are we forgetting something important?
What do you mean?
Well, we talked about how Aquila Boards is picking companies and navigating the market, but what about the companies themselves? Like, what kind of impact are they actually having in the world? Do we have any examples of the cool stuff they're doing?
You're totally right. It's easy to get caught up in all the financial details, but this fund is all about how these companies actually make a difference. So let's switch gears and talk about clean tech, biotech, and healthcare. What are some examples of companies that Aquila Boards might be interested in? What problems are they solving? What amazing discoveries are they making?
That's where things get really exciting. Okay, so let's start with clean technology. I mean, it's a sector that's just booming right now. The whole world is trying to figure out climate change.
Hmm.
So we're talking about companies that are developing all kinds of stuff like new renewable energy solutions or ways to do agriculture that doesn't hurt the environment as much. Like imagine investing in a company that's figuring out how to suck CO2 right out of the air, or one that's making crazy good batteries that make renewable energy way more reliable.
Yeah, it's like investing in the planet, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
But we have to remember these are businesses, right? They need to make money too. So these solutions can't just be good for the environment. They have to be good business ideas as well.
Exactly. It's about finding that perfect balance between cool new ideas
Yeah.
and what people actually want and are willing to pay for.
Mm.
And that's where Aquila Boards really knows their stuff. They have to look at the technology, but also the team, the business plan, and how they're going to actually make money.
Okay, so clean tech is all about solving these huge problems facing humanity.
Hmm.
What about biotechnology? It feels like they're always pushing the limits of what we thought was possible.
Biotechnology is where things that used to be science fiction are becoming real. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking gene editing that could actually cure diseases that people inherit, or medicine that's made just for you based on your genes, or even crops that can handle climate change and don't need as many pesticides. It's not just changing healthcare, it's changing agriculture and even how we make stuff.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, but it also seems super complicated and risky. How does a fund like Aquila Boards even know which biotech companies are good investments? It's such a fast-moving field.
It takes someone who really knows the science and the business side. They probably have a whole network of advisors and experts who can tell them if the technology actually works, how the regulations will affect them, and if they can actually sell it and make money. It's definitely high risk, but the payoff could be huge. Imagine investing in a company that finds a cure for Alzheimer's, or one that makes meat in a lab. That would change everything.
Those are the kind of breakthroughs that would change the world. Okay, so we've got clean tech, which is all about sustainability, and then biotech pushing the limits of what we can do. What about healthcare? It seems like healthcare is always in demand, but it's also always facing new problems.
Healthcare is definitely essential, but it's always changing. I mean, all over the world, people are getting older, healthcare is getting more expensive, and people want more personalized and accessible care.
Right.
So that means there's a lot of room for innovation. Aquila Boards might be looking at companies that are developing things like telehealth platforms so patients can talk to doctors online, or AI diagnostic tools that can find diseases earlier and better, or even robotic surgery systems so surgeries are less invasive and people recover faster.
So it's not just about new treatments, it's about making the whole healthcare system work better.
Exactly. It's about fixing the big problems while also supporting new therapies and technologies.
Okay, so these three areas have a ton of potential, not just to make money, but to actually make a positive impact on the world. But let's be real, no investment is completely safe. What are some risks that investors in Aquila Boards should be aware of?
You're right. We should be excited, but we should also be realistic about the risks. One of the biggest risks with private equity is that it's not very liquid. That means you're putting your money in for a long time, like several years, and you can't just buy or sell your shares like you can with stocks.
So it's an investment that you have to be patient with and think long term.
Definitely. Yeah, and of course, there's always the chance that any of these companies could fail. Startups are always risky, even if they have great technology. They could fail because of the market or regulations or problems with management. And don't forget, Aquila Boards is a fund of funds. So it's even more complicated because they're trusting other fund managers to make good decisions.
So it's really important for investors to not only check out Aquila Board's track record and expertise, but also to really understand the risks of the specific funds and companies they're investing in.
Yeah, doing your research is super important.
Yeah.
But we should also remember the potential rewards. Historically, private equity has done better than the stock market. And these high-growth sectors, especially the ones that are focused on sustainability and technology, could really take off if the right investments are made.
It's higher risk, higher reward. But besides the money, what else might attract investors to a fund like Aquila Boards? We talked about this a bit before, but I think it's worth mentioning again.
For a lot of people, it's about investing in things they care about. If you're passionate about clean energy or new healthcare innovations or using biotechnology to solve problems, then investing in a fund like Aquila Boards lets you put your money where your mouth is. You're helping to build the kind of future you want to see.
It's impact investing on a global scale, which is a pretty powerful idea. And then, of course, there's the golden visa opportunity, which adds a whole other layer of benefits. But before we get into that, let's talk more about the secondary market strategy that Aquila Boards is using. It's a pretty unique approach, and I think it deserves more attention.
I agree. It's a part of private equity that people don't always understand, but it can have some big advantages, especially for investors who are looking for a different balance of risk and reward.
Okay, so let's go back to the basics. What exactly is the secondary market, and why would Aquila Boards put so much of their money into it?
Imagine a big market, but instead of selling fruits and vegetables, they're selling ownership in private equity funds and companies. That's basically the secondary market. It's where investors go to buy and sell private equity assets. It gives people who want to get out of their investments a way to do that, and it gives new investors a way to get in at a different point in time.
So it's not just about investing in brand new startups, it's also about seeing the value in companies that are already successful. But why would Aquila Boards do this? What are the benefits for them and their investors?
Well, there are a few reasons. First, remember that private equity investments are usually illiquid, which means your money is locked in for a while. By going into the secondary market, Aquila Boards can potentially give their investors a way to get their money out sooner. It's not guaranteed, but it's something they can use.
So it's a way to maybe get your money back faster and see returns earlier. What else makes this strategy attractive?
Diversification. By buying into existing funds, Aquila Boards gets access to a whole bunch of different companies, often in different industries and parts of the world. It's a quicker way to build a strong portfolio than trying to find each investment one by one.
It's like they're getting a collection of investments that someone else has already chosen and is managing. But doesn't that also mean they're giving up some control? They're basically trusting the original fund managers to make good choices.
That's true. So doing your research is even more important in the secondary market. They have to look carefully at how well the funds they're buying have been doing, understand why the sellers are selling, and make sure everything fits with their own investment plan.
So it's not just sitting back and letting things happen. It takes a lot of knowledge about the secondary market and a good eye for finding deals. But there's one thing I'm still not sure about. We talked about different types of secondary transactions, LP-led deals, GP-led restructurings, and direct co-investments. Can you explain those again?
Of course. An LP-led deal is the easiest to understand.
Mm.
Just a limited partner who could be like a big institution or a wealthy individual who wants to sell their part of a fund. Aquila Boards working through Collar Capital would buy that stake from them and basically take their place.
Okay, so it's a straightforward transfer of ownership. What about those GP-led restructurings? Those sounded a bit more complex.
In a GP-led transaction, the fund manager, the general partner, is the one making the decisions. They might want to restructure the fund for different reasons, like to give money back to investors to make the fund last longer, or even to change what the fund is invested in. Aquila Boards could be part of this restructuring by buying assets from the fund, putting money into a new fund structure, or even buying part of the management company itself.
Oh, I see. So it's more strategic, and they're working more closely with the fund manager. And finally, those direct co-investments. Those sounded like the most focused approach.
Right. So in a direct co-investment, Aquila Boards would skip the whole fund structure and buy a part of a specific company that's already owned by another private equity fund. This usually happens when they see a company they think will do really well and they want to invest more than they could through the fund they're already in.
So it's a way to bet big on one company, but I bet those deals are pretty competitive, especially if other investors want a piece of the action too.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It takes good relationships, knowing a lot about the company, and being able to move fast when you see an opportunity.
So navigating the secondary market takes a special set of skills and a knack for finding value. But it seems to fit perfectly with Aquila Board's overall strategy of combining flexibility and diversification to invest in these high-impact companies.
It's a sophisticated approach that shows how private equity is changing. But let's not forget the bigger picture. All of these investment strategies, whether it's the primary market or the secondary market, are really about supporting companies that are coming up with new ideas and solving big problems. And that brings us back to the question we asked before, what are some real examples of these companies and what kind of impact are they having?
Let's get into that. Tell us about some of these clean tech, biotech, and healthcare companies that Aquila Boards might be looking at. What are their stories? What problems are they solving? What amazing things are they doing?
Okay, so let's start with a clean tech company that's working on something that's important to a lot of us, having access to clean and affordable water. Imagine a company that's figured out a totally new way to turn seawater into drinking water using renewable energy. This could be a huge deal for coastal communities that don't have enough water. It's a sustainable solution to a problem that's only getting bigger.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that these aren't just investments, they're about real solutions that can make people's lives better.
What about in the biotech sector? What are some of the things these companies are doing?
Okay, imagine a biotech company that's developing personalized cancer vaccines. They use this cutting edge gene editing technology to make vaccines that are specifically designed for each person's tumor. It's like training your own body to fight the cancer. This could totally change how we treat cancer. It would be more targeted and less harmful than chemo or radiation.
Wow, it's amazing that these breakthroughs are happening right now and that a fund like Aquila Boards could help bring them to the world.
Okay, one last example. What about healthcare? What kind of impact are we talking about there?
Imagine a company that's made this AI-powered tool that can find early signs of Alzheimer's just by scanning your eyes. Finding diseases early is so important, especially with brain diseases, and this tool could be a game changer. It would let doctors start treatment sooner and maybe even slow down the disease.
It's like having your own personal health monitor that's always checking up on you.
It's a really cool example of how technology can help people take charge of their own health and get care before things get really bad.
It's clear that these companies and so many others like them are doing amazing things. They're making the future healthier, more sustainable, and more fair. And Aquila Boards, with their investment strategy and their focus on impact investing, is helping to make that happen.
You're giving these companies the money, the expertise, and the support they need to grow and make their ideas a reality.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main things you want our listener to take away?
The most important thing is that Aquila Fund FCR and its boards fund give you a special opportunity to get involved in private equity, specifically with companies that are innovating and tackling big global problems.
It's not just about making money, it's about investing in things you believe in and maybe even making a real difference.